We good?
Yaki?
Here.
Is Mrs. Brady? Is she doing?
Here.
Okay. Mrs. Chestnut?
Here.
Mr. Miranda?
Here.
Mr. Ham?
Here, thank you. The next item on our agenda is a welcome and dedication of our Wall of Honor. I'll turn that over to Superintendent Spicer.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. This November is always a special evening for us as a district to honor those who have served our country. This evening we have a special program, and I think the first thing that we're going to do this evening is the presentation of our colors from the Milford High School ROTC and Captain David Poff.
Forward, march. Belly on, halt. Pose. 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 Present. Arms.
We'll do our Pledge of Allegiance.
We-
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dan, you want to introduce our special guest?
Sure. Singing the national anthem tonight, we have high school senior Julia Gill.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Arms. Pose. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you. All right. Before we turn the mic over to Mr. Knipp, it is my pleasure this evening to award a diploma from Milford High School to Heber Cunningham Jr. Heber Cunningham Jr. left high school and joined the United States Army at 17 years of age. He served from 1965 to 1969, where he was on the front lines during the Vietnam War. He was awarded the Purple Heart after being hit with shrapnel and also the Bronze Star after saving a fellow soldier's life in combat. After leaving the Army, Heber enrolled in woodworking courses and worked as a machinist. He's been married to his wife, Norma, for 47 years, and they have 4 children, all who went through Milford schools. Jennifer, the oldest, graduated in 1994 and currently works at Boydie Smith Elementary. His 3 other children, Kelly, Jody, and Brian, also attended Milford schools. Heber is affectionately called Pappy by his grandchildren. On behalf of the Milford School District, I'd like to present this honorary diploma to his daughter, Jennifer. Jennifer, we appreciate his sacrifice and service to our country. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Mr. Gary Knepp.
It's always a great honor for me, particularly as a Milford High School graduate in 1972. Yeah, I was a Milford High School graduate of the class of 1972. I did not serve in the military, but I am very much aware of the sacrifices and the contributions that our military community have made to our community. And it's always a great honor for me to come back this time each year, participate in Milford's honoring of our veterans. This time I'd like to introduce John, or what is your name? Larry Curlis. Come on up, Larry. Larry Curlis is a, is it 1963? Graduate of Milford High School and a Vietnam War vet.
Welcome, everyone. It's a great honor to stand up here tonight, and we're all very fortunate to have 2 men in our room, in our midst. Mr. Joseph M. Fitzwater Jr., who is a 1942 Milford graduate, a veteran of World War II and the Korean War. Also, we have Mr. Bill Singleton, right down there. He did not graduate from Milford schools. He grew up in Camp Dennison, and he came down 126 and took a right to Terrace Park instead of a left to Milford, so he went to the Terrace Park School. But felt we had to honor him. He's a Milford guy. He's been around here forever. I have one little short thing I'd like to read. I found in the Miami Valley News, November the 1st, 1945. Shepherd Field, Texas. Staff Sergeant William H. Singleton of Camp Dennison has been honorably discharged from the Army Air Forces at the Separation Center here. Sergeant Singleton, a nose gunner on a heavy bomber, entered the Army in February 1943 and served 8 months in the European theater. He wears the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters, and the ATO ribbon with 4 battle stars. Took his Army training St. Petersburg, Florida, Lowry Field, Colorado, and Fort Myers, Florida. A graduate of Terrace Park High School, Sergeant Singleton was a grocery store clerk prior to his military service. And also, sitting here is Mr. Joe Fitzwater, whom I have known for a very, very long time. He's a 1942 graduate of Milford High School. And I just happen to have a 1942 golf here in front of me. So I thought I would read what they said about him. Nickname was Joe. Pet saying, how should I know? His weakness, discussing the politics of American government. His ambition was to become an aviator. Favorite song was I'll Get Along Somehow, and he has. Let's see, his activities. He was on the annual staff his senior year, dramatic club senior year, intramurals, 4 years, track team, junior and senior year. He was a star sprinter and a javelin catcher. Is that true, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, he was a member of the Glee Club and the library staff. I did find something interesting. It says during his tenure on the library staff, Joe was present during a horrendous fire. Somehow he managed to save both books, one having not even been colored in yet. So way to go, Joe. Anyway, that is about it. Joe knew a lot of these men that we are here honoring tonight. So if you'd like to say a couple of words about the ones you remember, please feel free to come up.
I was not personally acquainted with them that well, but I feel that I could.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
knew of them. The names, of course, were synonymous with the war. I'll get up to that.
I won't talk too long because I have I know you have important things to say tonight. A thing I would like to bring up, since we're discussing patriotism and such. In my senior year in high school, I had a good friend by the name of Bob. I won't give you his last name, and he had a cousin by the name of Loretta, who both attended the Milford School. They were both seniors at the same time I was. And after the war started on December the 7th of 1941, they mysteriously disappeared from the school. And since Bob was a good friend of mine, I started making inquiries. I said, what happened? Where did they go? And I found out that because of their religious beliefs, they would not pledge allegiance to the flag. So they were dismissed from school very quietly. Nothing said about it until I asked. That certainly wouldn't happen today. And I think I'm the oldest living graduate of Milford High School. I'm not sure, but I think I am. I wouldn't swear to it. But the bad thing is, when you get on top of the ladder, the next step is down. So I'm not looking forward to that next step. Thank you.
Just one more thing I wanted to mention. Both Joe and Bill are members of our American Legion post here in Milford, post 450. And Joe's father was 98 years old in 1995. He was the last living World War I veteran at the time at our Legion post. And I'm quite sure now Joe and Bill are the oldest veterans of World War II at our post. Joe's the oldest. Makes you the winner, buddy.
Joe, we want to sincerely thank you for your service all these years. And I know your involvement in the community goes back many years. Milford High School particularly would like to recognize that and present you with the Bronze Eagle as a symbol of your. We're here celebrating Veterans Day. And I think a lot of people have overlooked or not remembered what Veterans Day means and how the origins came about. I'd like to briefly explain a little bit about that. Yesterday, November the 11th, was Veterans Day. It's a day to honor our men and women who served in the military. It was originally known as Armistice Day, marking the end of the Great War, which is now known as World War I. In the British Commonwealth today, it's known as Remembrance Day. The Great War was a catastrophic event in world history, killing nearly 20 million people, most of whom were civilians, and ushering in an even more devastating event, the 1918 pandemic flu, which as many as 50 to 100 million more around the world died. Milford High School contributed approximately 50 alumni to the 4.7 million Americans who served during World War I. Though America participated in the war for just 6 months, we suffered 53,513 battlefield casualties. Another 204,000 were wounded in action. 63,000 died of disease, of which 47,000 were from the Spanish flu. It's had a major impact on our world as well. The war ended with an armistice, which is a cessation of hostilities. It's similar to what's in Korea today. We've never had a peace treaty. We had a signing of a Armistice Day, and we're still technically a war in Korea as we speak. The war ended with that armistice, cessation of hostilities at the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. President Wilson asked us to set aside November 11th as Armistice Day to remember, right? And he wrote, remembering our reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride at the heroism of those who died in the country's service and of gratitude for the victory. Monuments were erected, moments of silence were observed, speeches were given, parades were staged to commemorate the end of the war to end all wars. And locally in Milford, the American Legion Post 450, known as the Victor Steer Post, was established as a veterans organization designed to promote patriotism. We were called the Victor Steer Post because fortunately there were no men from Milford who died in the service. Victor Steele was from Cincinnati, enlisted from Michigan, and took part in the Great Polar Bear Expedition in the Soviet Union during the war, and died charging an enemy machine gun emplacement and received the Distinguished Service Cross. In 1954, in the midst of President Dwight Eisenhower's administration, when we were there in the Cold War, he noted that the name of Veterans Armistice Day was changed to Veterans Day, since he noted that millions of Americans served in both World War II and Korea. He asked to change the name and called upon Americans to solemnly remember those who fought valiantly to preserve our heritage of freedom. He asked us to reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting an enduring peace so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. So that's the purpose of Veterans Day today. Former Superintendent Nancy House had suggested that we establish something known as the Wall of Honor to recognize all those graduates of Milford High School who perished in war. The criteria being that you had to be spending at least 1 year in Milford High School, serve in the military, die while in the service in the theater of operations. So that's why we're here tonight, in particular looking at remembering our veterans from World War II. So we say 20 years later, after the end of World War I, there was a new war that was fought that was even more catastrophic, greater disaster than even the First World War. There were nearly 60 million people killed in the war. That averaged out to about 27,000 per day. Americans entered the war on Pearl Harbor Day, right after Pearl Harbor, fighting on 3 continents, Africa, Europe, and Asia. The numbers are staggering, but they can only give you a sterile impression of what the war was like. You have to know the people to understand what they were. But there were 16 million Americans who served during the war. 407,000 died. 621,000 were wounded in action, and 72,000 are still missing in action, most of whom were in the Pacific. In Ohio, there were 839,000 who served, which represented the fifth highest number, and that represented 12% of Ohio's 1940 population. There were 23,000 casualties suffered by Ohioans during World War II. Dozens of Milford High School alumni served in the war, and tonight we are going to be recognizing them, and we think it is apt that we do so, since 2020 represents the 75th anniversary of the end of the war. The names that we have received to be honoring tonight were from the plaque erected by the Alumni Association in 1947. It represented the 10 men from Milford who were killed in the war, World War II. I do want to say that one of the names, if you've seen the plaque, which is located in the junior high school, it's not going to be on our plaque because John Foote died after the war was over in 1945 in the state of Texas, and therefore did not qualify for being killed during the war as it's been defined. We wanted to make sure of that, and that you also learn a little bit about John Foote. He certainly was a highly decorated individual, served with great distinction during the war in the Army Air Force. And I have a list here of his accomplishments. He was a captain He was a bombardier and navigator. He had the Air Medal with 9 oak leaf clusters, Distinguished Flying Cross, the Croix de Guerre from France, and Distinguished Unit Citation. So he had a very fulfilling military career. We wanted to make sure that you understood that the reason why his name wasn't there, and to recognize him as well. As I mentioned, in 1947, the Alumni Association came together to dedicate the wall that's in the junior high school. And that night, they had prepared a brochure that they hoped would explain the reason why they were doing what they were doing and recognizing these men. And I would like to, I thought I had a copy of it. I'd like to read that to you somewhere in this mess. But they wanted to make sure that everybody, again, understood what they were about. And so as part of the dedication ceremony, they produced a pamphlet that contained the names and the military biographies of each one of the honorees. They also had a little brochure that stated the reason for doing what they were doing. On the pages that follow appear the service records of 10 Milford High School students who gave their lives to buy victory in the late war. Those records tell the bare story of their military service. What they do not tell and cannot tell is the full story of their service that they did for their country. That story must unfold gradually, bit by bit, through the years of living rather that they made secure for the rest of us. It is fitting to set down the brief record of what they did as we gather for this 1947 reunion of Milford High School alumni. But it is more fitting to recall that with their service, everything that Milford stands for might have been lost without their service. So to these 10, we dedicate this token of our humble and grateful memory in which they are held by their friends and classmates. So tonight we would like to induct the new members of the Wall of Fame based on that plaque. And Larry's going to help me. I think you're the first one up,
Larry. Thomas George Clancy. He was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Clancy of Center Street in Milford. Tom was a member of the graduating class of 1941. During his high school years, Tom played 4 years varsity basketball, and in 3 of those years, Milford won the Claremont County basketball tournament. He also played volleyball 3 years, baseball 2, softball 2. In the 1941 draw film next to his senior picture, this was written. His nickname was Sid. Ambition was a toolmaker. His weakness was black coffee. His favorite song was the Indian Love Call. Tom's quiet nature, and good manner won him many friends for him. Because of his high character and qualities of leadership, he was chosen as a representative to Boys State. Also in the class play, junior class treasurer, and drawing staff as a senior. Tom joined the Army on February 8, 1943. He trained as a gunner and radio man on a B-24 bomber with the 819th Bomb Group, 7th Air Force. He attained the rank of staff sergeant. August 14, 1944, he was killed while returning in a crippled B-24 from a bombing run over Iwo Jima. In February and March of 1945, Iwo Jima was to claim 2 more Milford men.
Frank Kohler. So the class of 1940. His nickname was Franco. And while in high school, he participated in the reflector, band, and baseball. After graduating from Milford High School, he became a machinist and enlisted in the 22nd Depot Repair Squadron of the U.S. Army Air Force. He died on January 25, 1944, as a result of injuries suffered from a landmine explosion in northeastern France. It was described that he was on a secret mission. Although research so far, I've been unable to uncover what that secret mission was, but he was behind enemy lines. He was originally buried in the military cemetery near Verdun and was reburied in the Fremont Cemetery in 1948, and he was awarded the Purple Heart.
William Wesley Conklin. Sadly, we don't know too much about Wes, as he was called. He attended the 8th grade and his freshman year at Milford before moving to Georgetown. At Milford, before moving to Georgetown, where he graduated from Georgetown High School, His parents were Edna and Kenneth Conklin. Wes enlisted in the Army Medical Corps April 9th, 1943. In the 96th Division, 381st Regiment Medical Corps in the Pacific under General Omar Bradley. Wes was seriously wounded on Luzon during the Philippine Island liberation in 1944. On April the 12th, 1945, Wes was killed in action on Okinawa. Wes was 21 years old. Our friend Joe Fitzwater did know him, not well, but it's mentioned he was a very quiet and nice man.
Ellis Gregg III. First Lieutenant Ellis Gregg was a member of the class of 1938, class vice president, a cheerleader, and the editor of the Drought. He was also a graduate of DePaul University and was a member of the 4th Division of the United States Marine Corps. He saw action on Kwajalein, Saipan, and Tinian. He died in battle on the 1st of August, 1944, which represented the last day of the battle for that island. Tinian later became the launching point of the Enola Gay that delivered the atomic bomb. He is buried in Springville Cemetery. Now, Ralph Hodges, Second Lieutenant Ralph Hodges. He's a class of 1934. He's a member of the basketball team and was an avid hunter. He entered the service through the National Guard and was for a while a member of the Tank Destroyer Battalion. Later, while serving in France, he was a commanding officer of the machine gun platoon of George Patton's 3rd Army. A comrade named Martin Gimmets wrote a letter to Ralph's younger brother Harry, describing what happened on his knowledge of him. Harry, that many of you may have known in Milford, his younger brother was severely wounded of service in the Pacific Theater, and later served many years as the law director for the city of Milford as well as the city manager. According to what Mr. Dennis wrote, he said on one occasion, Ralph Hodges charged an armed farmhouse with just his .45 pistol. In doing so, he captured the farmhouse and 3 German soldiers. He also wrote that on one occasion, this Gemmett's platoon was supposed to cross over a heavily guarded field. And at that point, Ralph delivered the most beautiful covering fire I have ever seen. I've always felt that Ralph saved my life as well as many more that day by his superior knowledge of machine guns. He died in action on December the 4th, 1944, in Saar River Basin, in Germany, and was killed by shell fire. He was awarded the Combat Infantry Badge, Presidential Unit Citation, Purple Heart, and was buried in Greenlawn Cemetery.
Paul Francis Holden was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Richard J. Holden of Goshen Pike and Mulberry. Paul was in the class of 1944. His nickname was Paul Francis Anthony Holden. Weakness was hunting, ambition to succeed, and his favorite song was the Pistol Packin' Mama. He was a member of the library club. With his senior photo, it said he really is one senior boy that studies. He is a good student. He must be to make straight A's in physics. Paul was inducted into the Army July the 17th, 1944, only 2 months after graduation. Didn't wait too long, did they? He trained in Camp Blanding, Florida, before being sent to the European Theater. A member of the Army's 1st Infantry Division, 18th Infantry, Company G, Paul served in Belgium and Germany. On March the 24th, 1945, near Ukerbarth, Germany, Paul was killed by shell fragments from an enemy tank. He was 19 years old. James Edward Malarkey, born October the 13th, 1922 in Marion, Ohio. He was the son of Timothy B. and Martha Malarkey. His father died in 1923 when Jimmy was just 1 year old. He and older brother Murray and mother Martha lived at 640 Wallace Avenue, Milford. During his high school years, Jimmy was very active in sports, track team 4 years, and during his sophomore year, he ran 5th in the mile run at the state meet. Volleyball 3 years, golf 2, intramurals 3, and the class play in his junior year. His nickname was Harkey, His ambition was a surveyor. Weakness, anything. His favorite song was the Tiger Rag. After high school graduation in May 1941, Jimmy worked at the Wright Aeronautical in Avondale, where I think half the town of Milford was employed from what I've read. On December the 3rd, 1942, Jimmy joined the United States Marine Corps. He trained at Parris Island, South Carolina, and New River, North Carolina. Sent overseas to Pacific, January 13th, 1944. Jim was a PFC with the 24th Marines, 4th Marine Division, participating in the following battles: the Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands, Saipan, Tinian, Kwajalein. Quite a resume. Then in late 1944, he was in Hawaii. I read an article in the Miami Valley News once, and in a letter to his mother, he had met another Milford guy in Hawaii. They were talking future plans, and Jimmy said he hoped to spend the rest of the war in Hawaii. Unknown at the time, the 4th Division was training for the invasion of Iwo Jima. During the over 1 month battle for Iwo Jima, 6,821 Americans were killed and 19,217 wounded. On March the 4th, 1945, James Edward Malarkey was killed by a Japanese sniper while going to rescue a wounded buddy. Jimmy was 22 years old. He's buried in St. Andrew's Cemetery, and I just placed a fresh flag at his grave site yesterday.
Sergeant Paul R. Scott attended Milford High School as a freshman and then went to graduate from Harris Park. He was a member of the 453rd Bomber Squadron in the United States Army Air Force. On the 26th of March 1944, Paul and his crew substituted for another crew of the plane deployed boys, P-26 Milford, on a big bombing mission from England to Germany. As they settled over the target, they opened the bomb bay door, and the second anti-aircraft artillery shell. The plane, all members of the crew, 10 members were killed. They landed or crashed into the sand dunes outside of Mark Rock. The story is fascinating to me in this respect. A number of years ago, I was contacted by a gentleman by the name of Roger Zenkins, who lives near Mark Rotten Cemetery. And every member of the 13,000 GIs who are buried in Mark Rotten Cemetery has a Dutch family that's adopted that grave. And over the years, and it's been 75 years, every Memorial Day and on their birthday, they lay flowers to recognize them. I asked Roger, why do you do that? Why is your family, Roger, his wife, Pat, and his son, Jeff, why do they do that? And then they said, they all recognize that these are their liberators, because without them, they would still likely be under the Nazi control. So they want to do that to remember them. I have a little presentation to make to the superintendent if you would like to come up. As I mentioned, I have had some contact with Roger over the years over this issue. And as we were discussing this, he indicated to me that he had found several pieces of the airplane that he flew in. So we have made a diorama or a shadow box, which includes Dutch flag, American flag, photo of the airplane, Paul's photograph, and several pieces of the plane. This is a presentation on behalf of Roger Jenkins and I would say people in the Netherlands thanking us and working for their service and we might put that in our trophy box. And this was put together by an artist from the high school. Who say that again? Damon Tucker of the faculty of the high school did this for us. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Got one more?
Small. Carvil Harry Smalley, son of Harry F. and Lula L. Smalley of 515 Clark Street in Milford. Carvil was a member of the class of 1937. He played basketball on 2 county championship teams, on the track team 2 years, band and orchestra, and the class vice president his junior year. Carvil's nickname was Stub. Next to his senior picture reads, "We know Carvil by his hearty laugh, followed by a stern look, which throws the blame for mischief somewhere else. His ambition is to become a civil engineer." After high school, Carvil was employed at the Scott Food Market on Main Street in Milford. On October the 17th, 1940, Carvil entered the Marine Corps, where he trained at Parris Island, South Carolina. He served overseas in England and participated in the African campaign. He returned to the U.S. in 1943 and served as an instructor at Camp Pendleton, California. Transferred to Hawaii in 1945. While in the service, Carvil had married Margaret Milligan of Milford, whose father was H.E. Milligan, one-time superintendent at the Milford schools. On February 26, 1945, Sergeant Carvil Harry Smalley was killed in action on Iwo Jima while directing machine gun fire. Carvil was 25 years old. He's buried in Section 14, Green Lawn Cemetery, Milford.
We have CLELL STEAGALL, is a remaining member to be inducted. CLELL is a sad story in a number of ways. As you see, we have no pictures of CLELL. We have looked through all the draftsums, any piece of paper that we could find. We've looked through military records, and CLELL, unfortunately, is a ghost. So what we have here, I'll describe the photograph. This is where he's buried in the Philippines, and a certificate that the government has produced marking his demise. CLELL was a graduate, or would have been a graduate, of Milford High School in 1942. He left school early to join the Army. He became a member of Company M of the 31st Infantry stationed in the Philippines. The Philippines was a place where everybody in the Army wanted to go. They even lost a stripe. So if they were sergeant, they were willing to take a demotion to corporal in order to get to the Philippines because they all enjoyed it so much. That changed on December the 8th, 1941, when the Japanese attacked the Philippines. The plan that was devised was that we would defend the Philippines, since that was an American colony. We would defend it from the peninsula at Bataan, holding out long enough that there would be help from home. Well, the decision was made. It would be Europe first and the Asia Pacific theater second. They were supposed to pre-stage lots of supplies such as food, ammunition, and medicine, but they didn't get quite as much as they needed to do. So from day one, the troops that were on the Bataan were on half rations or even less. They realized what was happening to them, that they were going to be abandoned, if you will, to fight on without any hope of success, but that didn't stop them from doing their duty. They called themselves, they said they have a song called "No Mama, No Papa, We Are the Battling Bastards of Bataan." Despite all, they were courageous, almost desperate in stopping the Japanese. And though the Japanese outnumbered them greatly, the Americans on the Bataan stopped them, caused them to reorganize, get new men in and new supplies because they had hurt them so badly during it. Sometimes the men from Bataan are looked at as scapegoats or sacrificial lambs. I'd say if you read the record, they're certainly not that. They were roaring lions. We need to recognize their service for what they did. STEAGALL survived 3 months of the battle and made it out after they surrendered because there was virtually nothing else they could do. They were out of medicine. There was no food anymore, no supplies at all. There was nothing they could do but surrender. And so then they entered the second stage of hell, and that was the Bataan Death March. 1,600 Americans went on were forced marched for 60 miles. This was not a healthy group of GIs just coming out of the barracks. They went for 3 months on starvation wages, and there was not a one of them that did not suffer from dysentery, beriberi, rickets, or scurvy. And they were forced to march with no assistance. And if the Filipino civilians tried to give them a bowl of rice or a little bit of water, they were killed. They were used for live bayonet practice at various points. Even so, out of the 1,600 Americans on the march, 800 made it to Manila. And there they were put into the Camp Donaldson POW camp. Very little in the way of food. Again, they were tortured, starved, and almost half of them died. There were up to 50 to 75 Americans per day were dying there. And it took CLELL STEAGALL on May 24th, 1942. This is the day that before he would have graduated from Milford High School, he'd stayed in the Army. Please remember these gentlemen. As great Milford High School alumni and somebody we can always be proud of. We should never, ever forget what they did. So tonight we honor them by inducting them into the Wall of Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp and Mr. Curlis. We're going to transition to a video that was put together on how we honored our vets across the district this week. In years past, we have invited veterans into our buildings to share their stories and experience with students. While we couldn't do that this year, as you will see in the video, the programs continued virtually. Each of our schools held celebrations with videos and activities. And at the high school, students watched video submissions from veterans and active service members. We thank all of our veterans and active duty members for their service. Please enjoy the video.
My name is Anna O'Neill. I am the chair of the Social Studies Department at Milford High School. Every year on November 11th, the anniversary of Armistice in World War I, we honor our veterans who have served in the armed forces and defended democracy and freedom. Schools from across our district invite veterans and active service members into their buildings. We celebrate their accomplishments and they share their stories and experiences with us. Due to COVID-19, we are honoring our veterans and active service members differently this year. Many veterans responded to our invitation to submit video stories to share with students. We thank all the parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and Milford graduates who shared their stories for our 2020 Veterans Day video celebration.
And to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cannons, let them strong. 1, 2, wherever we go, you always know that the army goes rolling along. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at the break of day. Through our last night on shore, dream to the flow. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. From the halls of London.
Hello, veterans, students, staff, family, and friends. Welcome to our virtual Veterans Day celebration. Today, we would like to take a few minutes to celebrate with you the brave men and women who have served or are currently serving our country. We will
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the time?
Veterans Day means a lot to me. Veterans Day is to honor the people that have served the past and present for our country and freedom. Veterans are people that will serve in one of the armed forces. Veterans go into war for their country and to keep us safe.
My name is Michael.
My name's Kate. My name's Charlotte.
And we're going to do the Veterans Day poem.
They did their share. On Veterans Day, we honor soldiers who protect our nation for their services as our warriors. They deserve our admiration.
Some of them were drafted, some were volunteers, or some were just yesterday, for some it's been many years.
We owe so much to them who kept us safe from terror. So when we see a uniform, let's say thank you to every warrior by Jonah Hutchins.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those willing to pay it. Today we celebrate American veterans for keeping this nation, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We received many stories from active service members and veterans. You will be introduced to everyone who submitted a story.
Hi, I'm Matthew Pranger, and this is my papa, Glenn Hawkins.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Vaught.
And I'm Ashley Dower.
We are both active duty majors in the United States Air Force stationed up here in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
My name is Tyler Barnes. I'm a captain with the United States Army.
And I am Brody Disher's dad. Brody's a fourth grader at Seipelt Elementary here in Milford. And I am a veteran of the U.S. Marines, and I appreciate you being here with us today to celebrate Veterans Day.
Hello, Milford Schools. My name is Major Justin Lechner, reporting to you from Saudi Arabia.
I'm Christian Combs. I'm a PFC in the Army National Guard as a Cap Scout.
My name is Lance Corporal Carrero. Went to high school in 2019, United States Marine Corps.
Hi, my name is Robert Warder. I am the great-grandpa of Pete and Teddy Roby.
Hello, my name is Bill O'Neill.
My name is Dan Schauer, and I live in Wisconsin.
Hi, guys. My name is Rebecca Stever. I'm a mom to two boys that attend Meadowview Elementary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Hilton. I'm a 2014 Milford graduate, and I'm currently active duty in the United States Army. I'm a second lieutenant.
And I served in World War II.
Hi, I'm Sue Potashnik, and I'm coming to you from Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
I'm Army Major retired Johnny Main.
My name is Patrick Bressler. I'm Jordan Bressler's grandfather.
You can go to our website to download both the long and short version of our Veterans Day celebration video.
I'd like to thank Anna O'Neill and also Wendy Planica for putting together our video. It's also my pleasure at this time to introduce in the back corner Kylie Hicks. Kylie will perform, thank you, Kylie. Kylie will perform taps for us at this time. Thank you, Kylie. I'll now turn it over to President Ham and Ms. Ann Behrens.
So just want to thank Mr. Fitzwater, Mr. Singleton for your service. And thank you for the presentation by Mr. Curls and Mr. Knapp. Very sobering, but also it allows us to remember the sacrifices of our veterans and our families. And we thank you for that. You are truly our American heroes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Behrens, and I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the Builders Club of the Milford Junior High School tonight. Builders Club, for those of you who might not be familiar, is the junior high version of Kiwanis. And so our mission is service. We do service for our school, we do service for our community, and we do service for our world. And so the Treats for Troops campaign falls right into our wheelhouse of what we do. We have 15 students this year who have I'm very proud of them for taking on this. They worked very hard to advertise for the Treats for Troops campaign this year. They made a bulletin board in the hallway. They went around to all the ACE rooms and talked it up. And more importantly, they all brought things that they donated, and they were the first to donate in their ACEs, and then people followed suit. We were able to collect over 900 items for the troops. We filled boxes and totes, and basically all of the boxes that we could put our hands on, we were able to fill them. So we came up with 51 boxes. This is a lot more than that. But I was super proud of them. They worked very hard. I would also like to thank the Milford Kiwanis president, Chris Bateman, who gladly donated our gift cards that we used as prizes. So we rewarded kids by giving them a raffle ticket if they were donors. And so the kids who donated got the tickets put in the bucket, and Mr. Bateman donated all of the prizes for that. So we had a great campaign in the middle of this not so great time. I was very, very pleasantly surprised with how many donations that we were able to get. So I want to thank all of the families from Milford Junior High School and all of the student body, but more importantly, I really would like to, from the Builders Club, thank all of our veterans. And we are very honored to do this for all of the overseas men and women who are serving our country right now. We appreciate the service and sacrifice of all. And I hope that these boxes bring some smiles to some of their faces. Thank you.
Thank you, and for all the work that you've done here, as we've seen in front of us. We've got a little bit of housekeeping before we move on to the agenda. I'm going to go back a bit. We'll need to approve the agenda for today, even though we're a little bit into it. And we'll do that through a motion. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any changes? Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you. Next, we need to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting from our October 2020 meeting. We'll need a motion. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you. Next, we'll move to our student council. I believe we have our junior high student council here tonight.
Yes, Mr. Ham, we do.
Welcome and thank you for coming. Looking forward to hearing what's going on at the junior high.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Camden Wright, the 8th grade president.
I'm Kelly Callahan, the 7th grade president. So today we're here to talk about that the Builders Club is a separate group from the student council. And for some ideas that we are having a decorating door contest. So each ACE will decorate their door. We do have a theme, and it's acceptance.
we feel that everybody needs to think that they're accepted, and there will be a prize. And then we will be having a flock day next Friday, November 20th, and everybody will be wearing their Milford Spirit shirt.
And the Builder Club is also doing a penny drive, and it's from December 7th to 11th during lunches. School teams will compete against each other daily for the $1 million banner. All of the money we'll raise will be donated to Feed Our Flock, and the digital media classes are involved by making posters for it.
Do you guys have any questions?
No, thank you very much. Continue your great work and the leadership at our junior high.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ham, if I may. I'd like to recognize Misty Getz, their junior high principal, for being here, supporting them. And thank you, Misty, for all you do. And also, there is one more presentation on here that's not on the agenda. One quick presentation. Jenny Berkeley, please, to the microphone.
President Ham and members of the board, as we continue to work through the COVID-19 pandemic and navigate new hurdles that surface despite our strong planning and processes, the process associated with those who test positive and require quarantining is extremely comprehensive, time-consuming, and needs detailed precision. While many of us have had active roles in cases and situations, one person has been the brain and the battery of every single case by leading the charge, providing the guidance, and most importantly, allowing us to feel confident in the accuracy of the situation. And for that, we felt that it was necessary to recognize our district nurse, Patty Price. She has been this person for the entire Milford school community. During this month of November, when we reflect on those things and people around us for whom we are grateful, Patty Price is one. So Patty, if you would come here. So I promised Patty that she could sit in the back and smile under her mask, but we did feel like it was really important. She has worked truly countless hours on every single case. She's our liaison to the Claremont County Health Department. She's really our liaison and kind of that 911 person to every family that wants to call and question. She has come in on both of her personal days, and we really work around the clock on the weekend. So we are really just very, very lucky to have someone so knowledgeable and so dedicated to Milford. So thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, in a year that's probably redefined your role, we really do appreciate everything that you've done and all of our medical professionals, all of our medical support in getting us through what is a year that will be like no other. And I know that you continue to work hard and you continue to see surges and you continue to work with our public health officials. Thank you very, very much. And especially the good work of all of our administration. I know you work collectively together with Patty, and it's been a challenge. We've taken a very scalpel approach to making sure we try and keep things as normal as possible for our students without doing a broad brush. And I know that creates extra work. It's much easier to shut down a building rather than shut down a couple of grades. It's much easier to shut down a district rather than maybe a couple of buildings or a couple of extracurriculars. What you've done so far is allow these students to continue to have some sort of normalcy as they move forward through a very unknown situation. And I commend you all for that. Okay, we're going to move on with our agenda to the next section, which is our first bit of public commentary. Do we have any public comments?
I have none at this time.
We have none at this time. That being said, we're going to move on to our treasurer report. Treasurer Brian Rabe.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. First item, recommend the approval of the board minutes for the month ending October 31st, 2020.
We'll need a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a couple items to point out. You will notice on the reports, there was a large increase this month in purchase services. That being was the payment for the roof projects for McCormick and Meadowview. So that's reflected in those numbers. So there was a significant increase in that area. We did end the month with $46.5 million in the general fund. And then also during the month, we took in $72,617 in interest.
Any questions? Discussion? We've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
The next item is the presentation of the 5-year forecast. So each year we're required by law, once in May and once in November, to file a 5-year forecast with the state of Ohio, as well as have board approval of that forecast. The forecast is also a best practice that's recognized nationally. So taking a look at the 5-year forecast, just some basic outline. The 5-year forecast only looks at the general fund. So if you look at our all fund summary, you'll see a number of different funds for bond fund, student activities. The 5-year forecast strictly looks at the general fund. The forecast looks at 3 years of historical data, as well as 5 years of forecasted data, as well as a number of assumptions that go along with the figures that are in the forecast. So looking at the revenue side of the forecast, the revenue side is made up of real estate taxes, state funding, interest investments, other areas such as TIF payments, tuition payments, and pay to participate fees. So I want to get into a little bit more on some of these areas in the revenue side, because obviously with the COVID, we've seen some definite changes in this side of the forecast. The first item that we wanted to look at is the real estate taxes. So real estate taxes are going to be property taxes that are paid on commercial, industrial, residential areas. And one of the things I wanted to point out is every 3 years, every property within the district goes through some type of reappraisal. In 2020, the current year, the district is going through a full reappraisal. What that means is someone is actually coming out physically looking at every property and valuing that property. And then every 3 years, we go through what's called a reappraisal. And that reappraisal only looks at property value sales that occurred in the area to reappraise somebody's property. So in 2020, the district is going through a complete reappraisal. I should say Claremont County is going through a complete reappraisal. So whatever those new appraisal values will be, that is what people will pay taxes on beginning in February of next year. What we're hearing right now, some projected figures we're getting is we're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of a 7% increase in overall property values within the district. Now, keep in mind when we talk about that 7%, that obviously that's a big number from what we've seen last year, which was about 1%. The district does receive additional real estate taxes on that new value, but only with the inside millage. So, for example, if your property is valued at $100,000 and it goes up to $110,000, that $10,000 in additional property, you are going to pay the 3.3 inside mills on that new millage. So, taking a look at just ballpark figures, if we do overall go up in that 7% range, that will result in about a $250,000 increase in real estate taxes to the district based on that inside millage. The other piece of that we've noticed is the delinquencies. We noticed that with this last payment, the delinquencies in the state of Ohio, in Claremont County within the district, we saw a 34% increase in delinquencies with this past year. So 34% amounts to about $363,000 in increase in delinquents. So that obviously has had an effect on our 5-year forecast. Moving on to the state foundation, the state funding formula. Just kind of a brief history. Back in, typically when a new governor comes into office, they typically change some type of the formula that we're using. During the biennial budget, right before DeWine took office, or right after DeWine took office, what the state did is they basically froze the formula for school districts in the state of Ohio. So what we had in the past was a formula based on the number of students that attained our district, and then you receive funding based on that. So if your enrollment went up, you received more money. So what they did in the biennial budget, they actually froze it for last fiscal year and this fiscal year based on 19's level. So regardless of how many students, additional students that came within the district or left the district, we received the exact same funding for those years. That was placed in the biennial budget. And then COVID hit. So what happened when COVID hit? Obviously the economy took a hit. The state sales taxes took a hit. And what happened at the end of last fiscal year, the state implemented a $1.2 million reduction in our state funding through the last 2 months of last year in May and June. They again took the same amount, the 1.2 million. They also deducted that again from this year's foundation funding. Fortunately, this year it's being divided up amongst. It started in June or July, so that's going to carry out through the end of the year, unlike last year where it was done within a 2-month period. So what we took is we took that overall between 20 and 21, we took about a $2.5 million hit, or yeah, $2.5 million hit from the state in reductions as a result of COVID. The other item, a couple other items that are in this same state funding category is the casino revenues. Typically in the past, what we were seeing is we were seeing about a $360,000 payment twice a year for casino revenues. So far this year, we've only received one payment so far, but that payment has actually been cut in half. So what we're looking at is about a reduction of about $160,000 as a result of the casino revenues dropping off. The other item that we saw last year, which will probably take effect this year as well, is what's called catastrophic costs. So what catastrophic cost is the state sets a threshold for certain special ed students that if the cost to educate that student exceeds a certain dollar amount, you can apply to the state to get additional funding for those students. The issue with it is the state caps the pool of money that can be dispersed. So the more districts that apply for the money, the less every district's going to get. So last year, we in the years past, we saw about a $700,000 annual payment at the end in June for catastrophic costs. This year, that dropped to about $640,000, simply because more districts applied for that. So we took a hit there as well. So if you look at it over the course of the 2 years, obviously COVID and the catastrophic costs from the state, we lost about $2.8 million in revenue as a result of that. Looking into the future, there is currently a proposal that was proposed at the state legislature, House Bill 305. There is also a identical bill that has been issued in the Senate right now to basically put a funding formula back in place beginning next year. Right now, it's very early going through the process. There's a lot of talk and a lot of issues going on at the state regarding House Bill 305. It does sound very promising that it would have a chance to pass. Simulations that they have put out, they're basically telling us that we will not see any type of reduction in funding from what we got pre-COVID. So we're looking at, if you look at the 5-year forecast, we're projecting that the state funding will go up back to pre-COVID levels and stay flat based upon what they're telling us out of House Bill 305. Obviously, that's still a proposal. It still has to be passed, but it's a positive sign. The other piece of that is they believe If you familiar with the DeRolf case, which is deemed the school funding formula has been unconstitutional for about, I believe, 25 years now. They believe this funding formula will resolve that issue. So some positive that's going on at the State House, but obviously it's still a wait and see approach. When we look at all other funding on the 5-year forecast, manufactured homes, tuition, when you look at it, we have preschool tuition. We are taking a hit in all-day kindergarten simply because some of the numbers are down compared to years past. So that tuition that we typically would have collected, we're seeing a decrease there. The other item that we're seeing a major impact is on the interest income that we're earning on investments. Last year, we had about $740,000 in interest income. This year, based on our current investments, we're going to see that drop to about 460, with future years actually falling even greater than that. Reason being is we were seeing at times 1%, up to 2% on some of our investments. A lot of those investments are maturing or being called. And when we try to reinvest that money, now we're seeing 0.2% interest rates. So the drop in the interest rate because of the economy is definitely having a significant impact on the interest income that we're able to generate off our investments. The last piece of that is we have a number of TIF agreements with Miami and Union Township. This year, that will amount to a little over half of all other funding in that category, which will equate to about $3.7 million. So looking at it overall, looking at last year's, the property tax and the rollback tax made up about 58% of the district's overall revenues. The state funding accounted for 32%, and then that all other operating revenue accounted for about 10%, looking at last year's figures. So next slide this is basically just the 5-year forecast, the figures out on the 5-year forecast. So you can kind of see on that first line, the property tax line, it's not growing as quickly as it has in the past, simply because we don't know where the delinquencies are coming in, and as far as when those will actually get paid. And then obviously the state funding hit that we took this year, and then that increase going up the following years. And then the second from bottom number is the all other financing. Obviously, we're going to see a decline, and that's basically due to that interest income loss. So looking at the expenditure side of the forecast, we'll start first with salaries. So obviously, employees are our biggest cost to the district. We do have the agreement with the 2 unions for the 2% for this year and 2% next year. The remaining 3 years of the forecast, we did project a 1% increase with that. We also look at keeping current staffing levels flat. We don't anticipate any type of increase or decrease based on what current staff levels are. On the employee benefit side of things, there's 2 types of employee benefits that we look at. There's voluntary benefits, and then there's mandatory benefits. When we talk about mandatory benefits, we're looking at Medicare, which is based upon an employee's salary. And then we're also looking at the state retirement systems. The state retirement systems are, by law, we have to pay 14% of an employee's salary into the benefit system. So those are mandatory benefits. The other piece of that is voluntary benefits. So you're looking at health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance. So those are benefits that an employee chooses to opt into or opt out of. So when we look at that this year, we're beginning January 1, we'll see a 9.5% increase in our insurance rates. Obviously projecting out, we're projecting a year over year of about a 10% increase in insurance rates. Again, based upon current enrollment of who's taking those current benefits. When we look at the purchase service side, you'll notice there is a large jump in purchase services for this year and next. We'll kind of get into that in the next slide as far as the reason for that, the capital projects that have been going on beginning this summer and into next summer. And then also we're looking at supplies as far as just the basic inflationary increase in supplies. Capital outlay is pretty steady, flat throughout the 5-year forecast. And then the fees that the district pays, those are basically when the county collects real estate taxes on the district's behalf, they take out a share for their fees for collecting those taxes. So if looking at the next slide, with the purchase services, the reason being the large increases of those, we did a number of capital projects. We did the pool HVAC, we did the high school bleachers, and then this past summer, we did Mulberry and McCormick's roofs. And then this upcoming summer, Pattison and Meadowview will be on that list for roof replacements. So that those large increases in purchase services is the result of those capital projects that will be going on. Just an overall percentage of basically last year's. As you can see, salaries and benefits accounted for 73% of all expenditures. Purchase services accounted for 20%. The other big item in that purchase service category is transportation. Supplies and capital outlay, obviously smaller figures. I believe capital outlay was less than 1%, so it doesn't even really show up on this form, but you can get an idea of where the money is being spent. And then the slide is just what's on the forecast. And here's where you can truly see the purchase services, the 17 million down to 16 million, then drop down to 16.6. So expenditures, obviously year over year, are going to continue to grow based upon negotiated agreements as well as inflationary increases. And then the final slide is, so based upon the 5-year forecast, what we have projected in the past is that we would hit that deficit spending mark. So deficit spending is the point in time where you're spending more money than what you're actually taking in. So we obviously expect to see that tipping point occur this year where we're going to be spending more than we're taking in. And that's reflected in the expenditures, or reflected in the red line. The revenues projections are reflected in the blue line. The green line is the cash balance. So obviously, based upon years past, we've been able to grow that cash balance. Obviously, with the impact of COVID and the reductions at the state level, we've definitely been better off than a lot of districts because we had that cash balance on hand. But obviously, we're at the point where our expenditures are going to exceed our revenues. We're going to see a decline in that cash balance as a result of that. So obviously, that's something that we'll continue to having to look at through expenditures, what we can reduce, where revenues are coming in, and then obviously some type of operating levy in the future. As we talked about. So any questions on the forecast?
Right, so we'll need a motion on this to accept the 5-year forecast. Let's do that.
Okay.
With the first and second, then open it up for questions.
Not a problem.
We need a motion on the fiscal 5-year forecast.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion for Brian?
I did have a question about the casino revenue. You're showing that in the general fund. Is all of that money going into the general fund at this point, or it used to be that it was for specialized purposes only? It was not in the general fund.
No, the casino revenue, it definitely goes in the general fund.
It's all in the general fund.
It's all in the general fund. It's on that state funding line item. And we haven't gotten that. The casino money is only maybe 5 years now that we've gotten it. But obviously, what we're seeing this year, that first payment we got this year, we took a major hit. Obviously, as the economy starts coming back, will most likely start going back to the casinos. So I imagine we'll gradually see an increase. But as of right now, obviously we took a big hit there.
Just, it's a massive amount of work to put this together, and to simplify it to a 10-minute presentation is really appreciated, and it also gives us something that we can understand.
Sure. Thank you.
So I appreciate the effort on that, and then that's a really nice job of presenting it. So thank you.
Thank you. I know I mentioned that, this is twice a year that the board approves it, and we have to file it with the state. But this is something that I'm constantly working on all year long. As new information comes in, we're looking at it, we're adjusting things. Obviously, we looked at the delinquencies on the real estate. That kind of was it. We were expecting something in more line is around 10%, but then to see 30% to hit, so that really affects things. So, and that was back in August, September. So it's something that we work on year round. It's not, even though it only comes to you twice a year. And I know in the board reports that I present to the board, it has that same category, same look. So you guys can get an idea of where the forecast is going.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Brian, thank you for all that.
Thank you.
We'll need a roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Ham, members of the board. I'm asking for your approval of the following 5 policies. It is the second reading for them.
We'll need a motion for the 5 policies on the second reading as determined by the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Further clarification on this? We're good? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item number 2, we are asking for the approval of the calendars for the 21-22, 22-23, and the 23-24 calendars. There is one special note in 2024. There is an eclipse in April. I know that's 3 years out. We did have a science teacher at the high school mention that to us, and I told her that we would look at that in the future, but that might be a remote day for us, so that I think the special viewing of that is within an hour of us. So it was like, it really is something special. We'll come to that in a few years, but throw that on your radar.
What was the date of that?
I believe it was April 8th.
April 8th.
I believe so.
The year is 2024.
2024, April 8th.
Hold on, I put it on my calendar.
Nice eclipse. So
Yeah, I'm still looking at what's on my schedule next week.
hey, me too. But you know what?
Scientists like to look a little further out.
Being a fellow science nerd and looking at the constellations, it is pretty special. So anyway, so just put that on your radar. Also asking on number 3, a field trip for the VEX robotics. We need approval.
Motion for the calendar.
So we're going to do this one at a
We're going to do them
time.
all separately?
Yeah.
Okay. We need a motion for the approval of the subsequent 3 years of our district calendar.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item number 3, there's a field trip with the VEX robotics, Milford High School. That is December the 5th. That is 10 students, 1 chaperone to Brecksville, Ohio. There are no spectators. Pit tables are spread out. 2 high school teams will be attending, and families will be providing transportation for that.
We need a motion for item number 3, the field trip for VEX Robotics.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion or comments? John, I think in general, we're following the rule with these activities that as long as there's not spectators, if it's out of town, we're not utilizing district transportation, they're individual transporting students through families,
Yes, sir.
that we are, at this point, we're allowing for these activities to continue.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, a roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Under item number 4, we do have some informational items to discuss this evening. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Jen Schaefer, the admin assistant here, for helping put together, first of all, board docs. So making sure that we're board docs ready. So thank you for that, Jen. Also, your work with the veterans program today as well, and making sure that's here. And we certainly appreciate that and appreciate you being here tonight. So thank you for that. Under some of our informational items this evening, November 17th, we'll be hosting our first Facebook Live event. It'll be a Q&A type session with myself. We have a thought exchange set up that parents, community members can go into and put their thoughts in, and we will answer those as we start the program. And then towards the end of the program, time provided, we will open that up to sort of a live chat where they can type some things in, and we'll be in here probably socially distanced and having a nice little Facebook live chat, coffee, if you will. And we'll do at least 2 more of those this year, maybe 3 or maybe 4, who knows? We'll see how it goes. So we're looking forward to that. Under the COVID updates, I'd like to first talk about a confirmed case. You know, what happens if there's a confirmed case? And I think one thing, for whatever reason, these confirmed cases seem to happen on Saturdays or a Sunday, or they happen on Friday at 2 p.m. And Patty's not with us at this point, but Patty and I always joke with each other that we don't want to talk to each other on Friday at 1:30 or beyond, but it never works that way. So well, when there's a confirmed case, Patty communicates directly with the Claremont County Public Health, and the 2 of them have a discussion and determine the isolation and the quarantine dates for those involved. Isolation is for the person that's positive. Quarantine is those that are exposed or considered a close contact. School principals and nurses are contacted. There's a discussion about that, and they begin the contact tracing that is for in school. You know, in some instances, you know, as you know, it's 6 feet and 15 minutes for the exposure at this time to be determined as a close contact. I know that in some schools they actually use a tape measure in 6 feet, and we try to be as accurate as possible and to be as safe as possible. Each of our staff members, teachers, they have accurate seating charts that are available to principals 24/7. Some of our building principals have had to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday to do the contact tracing, and they actually go physically to the rooms, see where students are sitting, and they make sure that you know, they're 6 feet, and then the teacher helps determine the 15 minutes or more. The teacher is contacted, of course. There's conversation about that with the teacher or potentially a coach or an extracurricular activity advisor, et cetera. Families are then contacted. We do keep a pretty lengthy spreadsheet, depending on the number of students or staff members that need to be contacted about being quarantined, or the central office team. Everyone in here is involved. So we've got a text message thread that talks about you know, the dates, things that we need to do. And this process is a good 2 to 3 hour process to get everything, to do the contact tracing, to get the information, to get it in the spreadsheet. And then we divide up the numbers and we start making phone calls. I've had the misfortune of calling a couple parents twice because their kids have been in quarantine twice. But I am grateful for our team here and our building principals and our nurses in the buildings for giving up either an evening or a Saturday or a Sunday to make those calls. And it certainly is much easier to make 4 or 5 phone calls versus if you're the principal and the nurse and you're making 25, 30, or 40 phone calls potentially, or the high school staff up to 50. You know, we've had some athletic teams that have had to quarantine, and so we try to divide those up and divide and conquer as best we can. So I felt that it was pretty important to just kind of talk about what that looks like, and you know the work that is happening. And I know that Jenny Berkeley talked about Patty and the work that she does, and we're very grateful for that, the work that Patty does and all of the nurses that she works with in the district. You know, today, speaking of COVID, I've got a couple other items under the COVID report. You know, we did announce that the Milford High School students will remain in remote learning. I think it's really important for the community to understand that we don't take this decision lightly. We really do look at the data. We have conversations with our building principals, with Patty, with the public health department, the central office team. So it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. It's not an easy decision. It is difficult to make these decisions, and we know how difficult the decisions are for teachers, for the students, and for families. I will say though, you know, last week when we decided to go remote, our teachers have been amazing, and then we've had an amazing experience remote learning. And so I tip my hat to them and all that they've done this week in the remote learning process. You know, in this process, they've been able to help merge some of our quarantine students. Some of them have been quarantined twice. I even got an email from a parent that was grateful because it was the 3rd time her child had been in quarantine this year. And if you're a quarantine child, you have, you know, multiple teachers, multiple modes of learning. And so this opportunity for remote has really gotten them back on track. And so I think we're very appreciative of that. At this point in time, with the number of staff that we currently have in quarantine, we had to be remote. Staffing is difficult in terms of getting substitute teachers. The substitute pool right now from the consortium is down approximately 40%. I'll let Jenny confirm that for me when she gets up to speak in a few. But this remote learning allows us the best opportunity to come back on November the 30th and to be whole, meaning all of our teachers should be out of quarantine. All of our positive COVID cases should be, staff that is, should be out. And also all of our students should be out of quarantine by then. Now that is also provided there are no cases, no positive cases, no non-formal events that would potentially quarantine students. And so I think it's really important that we again talk about, you know, as we are in remote learning this week and into next week, and then going into Thanksgiving, that our families and students really practice the social distancing, wearing masks, and not having non-formal events, as the governor talked about. And that's where we're seeing the cases happening. And then it is then knocking folks out into quarantine, if you will. We're going to continue to work hard and work towards a strong finish for the first semester. Our plan is November 30th to be back to in-person learning at the high school. We will also at this point continue in-season athletics, extracurriculars, and fine arts. They will be allowed to resume their practices on Saturday, this coming Saturday, with extra precaution. following all of the state guidelines set forth by the governor and also the Ohio High School Athletic Association. And I feel confident that our coaches and advisors and our fine arts instructors will be able to do that. I'll take questions if you have anything on that right now before I turn it over to Jenny Berkeley, Assistant Superintendent. No? Very good.
No, I just thought, I want to say one thing. I do appreciate one of the things that we promised our parents, our community at the beginning of this year was that we wouldn't yo-yo them back and forth. And I appreciate that we're doing this the right way, which is let's get things back to normal. We understand we have an issue with the number of teachers. Obviously, the challenge for substitute teachers at the high school is different than a challenge at an elementary school, especially if you're talking about specialists in specific areas. And to have that large number in quarantine gives us a chance to reset, especially around this holiday period of time. And I'll just reemphasize what you said, which is be smart. You know, in order for us to get this back down, we just got to be smarter, wear a mask, socially distance, you know, don't have large gatherings. And we can probably finish the year strong by having our kids in building. So thank you.
Thank you. I 100% agree with we can finish strong. We don't want to yo-yo families. I think that in the future, if we see some things, you know, we'll have to go 2 weeks at a time, as we said we would. And so I appreciate the opportunity to go 1 week at a time, really because it was more about staffing than it was about true spread throughout, you know, the building, et cetera. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Berkeley, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. She's going to talk about our return to learning updates and the decisions to return to in-person learning or to go to Eagle Online learning. And she's going to talk about the staffing with that. Jenny Berkeley.
And I'll piggyback, John. As far as the sub-fill rate, it's hard to get an accurate look at that even from numbers because we have currently 8 long-term subs that are in the building that are filled every day because we hired them from the beginning for the entire semester. Those are even in the account, so that actually ups that. But looking at it, last October to this October, our fill rate was around 85%, and now we're around 60%. And that doesn't even pull out just the high school. So high school is also a challenge in itself. And the unfilled rate last year was around low 23%. And in looking at this month, it's well over 50%. So there definitely is a shortage, and it's just harder to fill. They're coming in late with the quarantine. So I will commend all the teachers again. Most of the teachers who are quarantined and not symptomatic are working from home. So if we are able to get a person in that classroom who has a permit of some sort, that could be an aide. An aide primarily is our go-to person, or a tutor of some sort. They can actually oversee the classroom while the teacher is teaching remotely. And that has been a tremendous help. But even with that, we're struggling with securing subs. So I had shared with you, in addition tonight, the decision form. And I don't know, David, if you got my email earlier this evening or early today, but I sent this if you want to try to find it. If not, they all have a copy. But it's just this grid. And so looking at the decision form that I shared in the front, I have 2 grids, and in the middle, you'll see some highlighted yellow numbers. That is the total number of responses that we received. So we had 226 elementary parents complete the second semester decision form, 57 junior high, and 187 high school. So I'm going to give you some overall numbers. I know you can look at this and certainly see the move from in-person to Eagle Online, as well as those moving from Eagle Online to in-person. But big picture, when we started the school year this year, we had 860 elementary students. Throughout the course of first semester, we have allowed students to come back based on medical needs, special education students, and then we had that open window. And currently we sit at about 754. And some of those, as of recent, with students struggling academically, that we were seeing falling in some general assessments that were really struggling. We had principals reaching out to families asking if they would want to consider coming back. So currently we're at 754, and second semester for Eagle Online, we will be at 537. So almost over a 300 person re-enrollment, I would say, or gain back in person from the very, very original number at the elementary. And that takes into account for those coming in and those going out. At the middle school, or at the junior high, we started roughly with 252, and we will be at 221 when we come back that are still Eagle Online. And then for the high school, we were at 581, and we will come back with 538. So the junior high and high school numbers have certainly stayed relatively where they were at the beginning of first semester. So many less students coming back in person. So as far as from a staffing standpoint, I think this is important. As I shared, we had hired 6 long-term subs at the junior high. We had hired 1 long-term sub at the high school, and we had 3 long-term subs to help us accommodate the Eagle Online staffing for elementary. And all of those have been paid from CARES Act money, so it wasn't from general fund. So in looking at what these changes have done in regards to staffing as it relates to the results of this form, students in grades 1 through 6 for both Eagle Online and in person will not be impacted in any way as it relates to staffing. So they will all keep their same exact teachers, both Eagle Online and in person for grades 1 through 6. At this time, we are planning to move the Eagle Online kindergarten students from Meadowview and Boyd to a new Eagle Online classroom to accommodate all the in-person moves. So Meadowview and Boyd will pick up both an AM and a PM section of kindergarten for numbers. Those students left in Eagle Online will go to an existing Eagle Online. All of those staff members have drastically dropped their numbers. So kindergarten numbers for Eagle Online across the board of what's left, 3 teachers at 21 students, which is a very nice class size. No in-person kindergarten students will be impacted as they're just joining or going to have new friends join them. Some students with disabilities will also change intervention specialists to accommodate the need for students returning in person. So again, there'll be a little shift. They'll all still have services, Eagle Online, but some will go to an intervention specialist that's in another building as we bring some intervention specialists back in. At the middle school, the junior high, sorry, wishful thinking there, I guess. At the junior high, we will have only 2 minimal changes, and that's actually a reduction in 2 of those long-term subs based on the in-person. We were able to absorb those with either internal staff at the junior high, and actually we're going to move 2 high school teachers who have open bells will pick up those Eagle Online classes. So 2 reductions there. And at the high school, there's just 1 change within the science department. So, and we are actually able to cover all of that internally, so there won't be any additions or reductions. So we're very grateful to keep our current staffing structure, as the teacher-student relationship is certainly critical to learning and success. The entire puzzle has actually fit together quite well and has allowed us to use only CARES Act money to accommodate all the additional staffing during this pandemic. So pretty impressive that it really worked out as well as it has. So questions?
Not a question. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Not a question, but I just want to say good job. I mean, I know it's just been nothing that could be anticipated. I mean, even starting in August and before. And I think that you've done a great job. All the teachers have really come together. And I'm really happy to hear that for second semester, even with all the shifting, because that was some hubbub, like what's going to happen for my in-person kid, for my whatever, that we're able to make that work. So
we're excited too. Eagle Online, of course, is still a work in progress. We learn every day and continue to meet with those staff and get their input as well.
I'm fairly confident that if I threw like a 5-square Rubik's Cube at anybody that's been working on this, I just go, here it is.
At this point, I think we know the staffing numbers and that grid pretty well. We look at it honestly every single day. So it's a little, even, 2, 3, 4, 5 students can make a big difference. So we keep our eyes on that closely.
And we had some trepidations over whether, in fact, we would be able to have everybody keep the same teachers, and
it's looking real good.
Be very comforting for not only the parents, but certainly for the kids.
Yes, and with this next few weeks, we can make sure that everybody's prepared and has met. We are going to do any kindergarten student who was Eagle Online and is now in person. They will have an opportunity to come to the building as their kind of open house, just so that they can be familiar with that too. And then we'll have some connections with teachers at the elementary level. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to note that that Jenny did mention is that all of our additions that we had to make in order to make Eagle Online or online learning happen, we've been able to pay through CARES Act money. So it did not come out of the general fund through January. So through January, or excuse me, through December, and then beginning January, we've gone to Brian and talked to him about that. But I'd like to commend Jenny Berkeley. She's worked diligently with Rob Dunn, Jill Hollinsworth, and Paul Daniels to make this work, make this matrix work, and of course all of the principals and the teachers. Certainly commend our Eagle Online elementary staff. Emily, I know that you have said that as well. They've done a wonderful job, very difficult job that they're doing. And certainly our online at the junior high and at the high school, they've created something very special, what they've done there as well. So I commend them as well.
Oh, thank you. Nice work. We're going to move on to our item F of our agenda this evening, which is Human Resources Business. Superintendent John Spicer.
Yes, under item F, President Ham, members of the board, we have some administrative approvals. We are asking for the item listed there, approval to change Caitlin Drescher's title from Interim Director of Extended Day to the Director of Extended Day.
We have a motion for item F number 1.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, certified approvals, we have those 4 listed for your approval.
We need a motion for item F2.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item F3, exempt approvals, we have approval of the following resignation and the approval of the following hiring.
We need a motion for item F3.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for item F3. Discussion, comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 4, classified approvals, we have approval of classified resignations, 3 of them there. Then we also have for you this evening approval of classified hiring recommendations for the 2020-21 school year.
A motion for item F4.
So move.
Second. Motion and a second. Comments or discussion?
Clarification, I see 3 resignations. I see 5 hiring recommendations. Is this an increase in staffing or is this just to cover previous attrition?
The approval is that would be for substitute food service workers, and then 1 substitute custodian, and then 2 health aid custodians. They're just substitute workers. Those are the approvals. The classified resignations, a teacher aide at the high school, and the food service worker at Wyoming, and then just a sub food service worker that just doesn't want to work anymore. So there's no increase. Is the question. The answer is no. No increase in staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 5, extracurriculars and supplemental approvals, we are asking for your approval of the extracurricular pupil activity contract resignations for the 2021 school year. We're asking for approval of athletic extracurricular supplemental contract recommendations for the 2021 school year. Approval of extracurricular pupil activity contract recommendations for the 2021 school year. And approval of the following volunteers for the 2021 school year.
Okay, we need a motion for item F5.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Comments, discussion?
I guess with all of these, we still have the same provision in there that if the activity is canceled, not allowed to proceed, that it's
Yes, so we do have the MOU in place with the MEA that states that if for any reason the season is canceled due to COVID, et cetera, or any other reason, that we would prorate that. We would work with them and the advisor and also the athletic director or at the junior high or high school. And then also if it were fine arts, we would work with Mr. Yeager as well to prorate that.
Any other comments, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item G, the Board of Education, our concluding items. The first one is our second public participation of the evening. Is there anyone who would like to comment publicly? Hearing none, we'll close public participation and move on to our next regular board meeting, which will be here at 1099 State Route 131, Milford, Ohio 45150, the Milford Schools Administrative Offices on December 17th at 7 p.m. Item 3, we have any discussion items from any of our board members, including our remote board member. I keep forgetting you might be there, Andrea. If you'd like to.
Just forget about me.
We needed to put a cutout above the speaker over there. That probably would have been better for me to realize you're still there.
Oh, it's like a disembodied voice. That's nice.
Any comments, Ms. Brady?
No, thank you, Mr. Ham.
You're very welcome. Any of our other board members?
December 17th means Christmas is really close. I
Yeah,
feel like this year just went.
yeah, flying by.
Oh,
We want it to fly by though.
I don't, it needs to be done. Yeah.
Let's move on to 21.
New Year.
Okay. Hearing no more need for further discussion, we're going to we need a motion to move our board into executive session. A motion to move into executive session to consider the employment compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes, thank you. And we do not anticipate having any vote following our executive session. So thank you all this evening.